with the rise of more and more people sharing their faith story online and in interviews like Ryan Trahan and Michaela Peterson, it got me thinking if I could go back and tell myself when I was starting out in my walk with God, what would be the top 3 things I would share it myself to focus on and do differently. That I know after being a Christian and a pastor for a long time that could really help me out and benefit my relationship with God, the church, and the world. Because the reality is there will always be high moments, especially early on when everything is new and exciting and your eyes are open to what God has or is doing in your life. But there are also hard moments, pain points. And while these aren't as fun as the high moments, they are essential to the Christian faith and to your growth. And I'm going to explain why and more right after this. All right, before we jump in, I just want to remind you guys that we are closing in on 1,000 subscribers. And once we do, we will be doing a 24-hour stream raising money for these 2 organizations right here to help kids in need. So help us help others by hitting that button if you haven't already. But okay, let's get into this. Oh, and if you make it all the way to the end of the video, I got one more bonus tip I'll give you that makes sense if you see the rest of this video. To start, I just want to look at a quick passage where Jesus gives a warning that I think could help give us understanding to 3 big points I want to make on what I would tell a young new believer or myself. Check this out. Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I tell you? Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and does them, I will show you what he is like. He is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation on the rock. And when a flood arose, the streams broke against the house and could not shake it, because it was built well. But the one who hears and does not do them is like a man who builds a house on the ground without a foundation. When the streams broke against it, immediately it fell, and the ruin of that house was great. The first point I want to make and really help young believers to help better understand in their faith is that what Jesus starts off with this passage with. In verse 46, he says, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord?" This was a religious word because you see, even back in Jesus' day, people thought that just by saying or doing the right things, like going to church or serving, doing religious acts, that was all God required and cared about. But this understanding of Christianity is shallow and superficial at best, which is fine as a starting point, don't get me wrong. At least you are in the waters of Christianity, and everyone has to start somewhere. But what we see is that Jesus then compares 2 different kinds of people, like houses in a storm. There are those who hear the words and do them, and they're compared to someone who has dug deep and laid the foundation on their house on a rock. And there are those who hear God's words but don't do anything about them, and they are like a house on the ground without a foundation. It's important to understand that God's desire for us and our relationship with him is that we grow and deepen our understanding of his word. If we want to grow and deepen our faith and build a house on a rock. Meaning, rather than just doing the exterior things like attending church or serving, again, both good things, don't mishear me, that we need to be committed also to learning and growing in his word by reading the Bible and other books that fall under the umbrella of biblical learning. When we do this, we will learn what we really believe and why we believe it. Too often, the idea of faith is used as an excuse to not interrupt our already busy lives, and the term theology can often appear to have a negative connotation of people who just want to argue and fight online or be nitpicky about this or that. But I promise you, younger me, that theology matters and it is important. Theology is the lifeblood of the church, and when used correctly, it is meant to be life-giving, not life-taking. So study it and use it wisely, because everyone is a theologian, Christian, atheist, agnostic, or anywhere in between. It just depends on if you are a good one or not. The second point I would like to make is to always lead in humility. If you are studying the Bible and growing, that is amazing. But with that comes a lot of new knowledge, insights into what God is saying, and it's easy to take those things you're learning and out of excitement want to share them with others. All good things. But when we are so confident that we write off other people who haven't read this or that thing, or are older and out of touch than we are, we haven't mastered sharing our knowledge in a helpful, life-giving way, aka a humble way, we risk hurting our witness and opportunity to be used by God in the areas we are invited into. Check this similar situation out in 1 Corinthians 8. We know that all of us possess knowledge. This knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. It's not just about knowing the right things, but knowing how to share and use that knowledge and right things that we know. If it's used in a way to puff ourselves up, that's no good. But if it's used in a way to love others well and build them up, we are doing theology proper. One of my favorite proverbs puts it this way: the purpose in a man's heart is like a deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Let's not be people who puff up, but ones that are able to be humble in all that we do, from leading to when we mess up and make mistakes. And if we are doing this, we might just learn something new along the way about our faith. The last point I want to share with myself, and I would do differently if I was a new believer, is that we would have to understand that pain and suffering is a part of the Christian life. There's no way around it, and it shouldn't be something we try to avoid. We don't follow the rest of the world and try to use escapism to not deal with our issues and problems, because pain and suffering, while not fun, to put it lightly, and not caused by God, is allowed by God. A video on what that means is going to be coming up shortly, so stay tuned for that. But God uses pain and suffering in our life to build us up and form us more into the image of Christ. Check out this passage here in James 1. He says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kind, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." I know this might seem hard to get in the start because usually the coming to Jesus moment is met with so much joy of understanding and knowing that there is a God who loves you, sees you, and died for you. And it's precisely because God loves you and cares about you that He will use the hard things in your life to draw you closer to Him and walk with you through them. So embrace trials when they come, because it's not a matter of if the storms of life will come, but a matter of when they come. If you aren't in a season where this is the case, work on the first 2 points we mentioned and on having others around you that can help point you back to Jesus and be a support for you when things do get hard. You're going to need them. This is why the church and being a part of the local body is so important, and why I talk about it right here in this video right over here. That's the bonus point I would give my younger, newer believer self, to check out this video right here to better understand why the church matters and why it isn't dead. But until next time, guys, know that you are valued and loved, and I'll see you soon.